Hey everyone, I'm Martin,
And I'm Davis.
and this is Every Game in My Steam Library. Today we're going to be talking about XCOM Chimera Squad. Davis, what are your thoughts on the XCOM franchise?
I've only played XCOM 2, which I think is most people's case. But I really like it. Like,
Is that most people's case?
I don't know. I feel like it's definitely like the most popular one. Right?
Yeah, I think you're right there. I played XCOM 1 first because I remember when XCOM 1 came out, it was very like, there weren't a lot of games like that.
Right.
So it was a new thing that was a cool experience, and I really enjoyed XCOM 1. But I actually never got around to playing XCOM 2 until a little bit ago. And it's definitely better.
Yeah.
It makes the old game obsolete for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you like XCOM, right?
Oh yeah. I'm a huge fan of like those kind of tactics-based games. Like even like that Gears of War tactics one. I was like, this one's pretty solid. Like,
Oh, I never played that one.
but yeah, like XCOM or like even like Divinity 2, like that's like an RPG XCOM almost. Like,
Damn, I've never played that one either.
yeah, that one's really fun.
I've played the Fire Emblem games. I played Three Houses. I'm probably gonna play the one that's coming out soon. My Switch has not been getting a lot of attention recently, but I'm probably gonna play the new one that's gonna come out. I think those are good games too. And I have some comments on some of the things that Chimera Squad does that I wish that they did differently, more like Fire Emblem. But we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, XCOM, solid franchise, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, good games.
A few hiccups here and there.
The camera can be glitchy sometimes. The 98% chance to hit that always misses, right?
Right.
Standard stuff. So yeah, XCOM. And today we're talking about Chimera Squad, which is like a spin-off thing. It's difficult to describe Chimera Squad compared to the other two in the franchise.
Yeah, but is it more like a spin-off like The Bureau is a spin-off, or like or is it more like an XCOM 2 type thing?
Well, it's more like classic XCOM. I mean, I've never played the Bureau, but I've seen footage. I've heard people describe what playing the Bureau is like, and the Bureau A doesn't sound like XCOM.
No.
And B is not set in the same time period. It's like a FBI, like not FBI, but what's that TV show where it's got the UFO? The X-Files.
X-Files,
It's more of
yeah.
like an X-Files thing, right? That's the Bureau.
Yeah.
But no, XCOM Chimera Squad takes place like after the XCOM games, and it's about like a task force made up of both aliens and humans who protect this city from like terrorist threats. And it takes place after after XCOM 2, where you've already told the aliens to fuck off, and the aliens have left, but they also left a bunch of aliens on Earth, and now everyone lives in harmony, so to speak, except for obviously all the terrorists.
Right.
And your job as part of this Chimera Squad is to go around and take out these like terrorist cells. And this is kind of brings me to my first point. So I think I told you to read my notes before we recorded this podcast, and I think my notes had 2 sentences in them. So this is going to be our first controversial episode, because the topics that we're going to talk about are controversial in and of themselves. And those 2 topics are politics in video games.
Woo!
Great topic. I know. Yeah, this is going to be an exciting one. And then number 2, difficulty in video games. Whoo boy, I really picked one.
You did not pick.
Yeah, you really picked one. But I have I think that there's a lot to say about those 2 subjects when it comes to this game. The difficulty thing, definitely less to say than the politics in games thing, but I think that there's a lot to say about both of those things. So I guess we'll kick it off with politics in games. What do you think about politics in games, Davis? What's your take on politically motivated games? We're not even politically motivated, but what do you think? As an art medium, games are meant to, well, if they're done well, if a narrative game is done well, it says something. What do you think about politics in games? I know you're playing through New Vegas right now. What does that game have to say politically?
Yeah, I am all for politics in games. I honestly I love it. Like, I'm not and all forms of it, like I don't care. I play Call of Duty, you know, that's just American propaganda, you know.
Basically, yeah.
But I also really love Disco Elysium, which is the most politically charged game you could possibly play, I think.
Right.
And, you know, I think that it adds realism, and I think that specifically in RPGs that it works really well because it allows you to insert yourself onto that blank slate character and really figure out, and like,
right,
you can play by what you believe in.
Right.
But I think that like kind of shoving it in there with nothing to say just to make a point is kind of stupid.
Right, especially when the point being made is kind of silly.
Yeah, it's either like a milquetoast take where it's like, yeah, no shit, or
like racism is bad. It's like, yeah, we knew that.
Yeah, you know, like
that one was known. Thanks.
A bit more substance than that, you know.
Right.
And I don't, that kind doesn't get me angry. I just think it's stupid.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it doesn't make me angry, especially if the game is fun. Like I don't really care, if I'm being honest. If, you know, the token black character in your game is spouting off about racism all the time, like I don't care. I'll just turn the volume off as long as the rest of the game is fun.
Exactly.
And I mean, the thing that I think a lot of people are scared of when we talk about politics in video games is like, it's been a hot button issue recently because of some weirdos who don't like black people or something. And then some other weirdos who think that if you call a game bad because it's a bad game, that means you don't like black people.
I love extremists.
And I think that those, the two extremes, right? Where you have the extremes on one side, and the extremes on the other side, both of whom will just yell at each other about everything all day and just kind of miss the point completely. So, for example, those extremists who just, you know, no women in games, or, you know, they might not say that outright, but like a lot of what they say definitely implies that, or at least like they're upset about it when, you know, the marketing material comes out.
Or if there is a woman, they must be the sexiest thing to walk the earth.
Yeah, exactly. You know? It's like they got to be eye candy or something. It's like, nah, you know, real people don't look like that. I get it. You want to tell a real story about real people, you know. People can be ugly sometimes. It's okay.
It's allowed.
It's allowed.
Why do you think we don't show our faces?
Yeah. We're ugly. Get with the program. Get with the program.
So
be ugly.
So where
does
XCOM lie on this?
I'd say XCOM is a great example of a missed opportunity. Because there is a little bit of like an implication of an allegory of racism when it comes to the alien races and how they've integrated with humanity and the goals of some of the terrorist groups. But I think that the allegory kind of falls flat on its face because there's never any kind of actual tension between the actual characters in your squad. So you have a bunch of humans and aliens in your squad that you can recruit, and not once is there like I feel like the allegory, if they wanted to say something about it, which sometimes it seems like they really do, it would have been cool to have a mechanic where your squad members would get mad at each other and some of them wouldn't go on missions with each other, and you would have to do some kind of like side activity to resolve conflict within your team.
That would be cool.
Yeah, I thought that would have been I thought of that idea like halfway through my playthrough. I was like, they're trying to make a point about diversity and the mixing of cultures and two isolated groups encountering each other and learning to live together, but you don't see any of that reflected in the actual characters. Everyone just gets along, and all the aliens are basically played for quirks. Like there's a big guy who likes to smash things. Big muton guy who likes to, big muton guy who likes to smash things, and it's always just played as kind of a joke. And it's like, this is where some tension could come from. It's like, hey, you live with humans now, and like in human culture, well, in most of human culture, like it's not okay to just like smash things all the time. And there could have been some actual tension and character development from that. And maybe by the end of the arc, the muton guy learns that, hey, smashing things is cool, but it's got to be in a place where nothing that other people like can be affected.
Right.
You know, well, it's like smashing other people's things is not cool. Or maybe the humans are like, let's help our muton friend. Let's build like a rage room in the base, you know, where he can just go and smash things, and that's okay. Like that's part of who he is. and we're not going to try and take that away from him, but that means we have to build a place where he can do that. So it would have been interesting to have some of this addressed in the story instead of just a very thin veneer of it. And I think that when I wrote politics in games, that was kind of my point, is it feels like this game wants to say a whole bunch of stuff, but it never does, or at least not effectively.
Right.
Because one more good example of like a missed opportunity, in the game you can lower like the unrest in various sections of the city by installing like field teams, which is like the same as satellites from the XCOM games.
Okay.
The other XCOM games, where they just kind of are a thing that you can buy and place in a spot, and they will generate, resources. And I think it would have been cooler if instead of like field teams, because this is like a city that people live in, it would have been cooler if it was like outreach programs.
Yeah.
Or it would have said something better if it was outreach programs, or if you could choose. If you could be like, okay, let's go down the like social welfare path or the autocracy path. And you could pick if you wanted to put like a school in or another SWAT team.
Yeah, that would have I mean, I don't know what exactly like their vision was for this kind of thing, but what you're describing would be awesome. Just like being able to have your choices, I guess, and gameplay decisions affect, your citizens, I guess, whoever you're giving these resources to.
It's kind of set up affect the city. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think that it would have been a much more interesting story if they used the gameplay to tell the story, and it doesn't feel like they are. The story is very like, the story is an excuse to play more XCOM, which works fine in XCOM 1 and 2, because that's like the whole point. It's like, we want a tactical game where we can run a campaign and it's hard and, big guns and whatever. But the setting and kind of the idea behind Chimera Squad, I think, would have served the angle of, let's make this a little bit more involved. Let's make this a little bit more like thought out. Let's make this a little bit more philosophically deep, which sounds like a cheesy thing to say, but like the game, through the gameplay, the game has nothing to say.
Right.
It's absolutely nothing to say. It is the same old XCOM. You go around, you kill aliens and Advent, and it's great. The game is fun. Let's get that out of the way. The gameplay is really fun. I had a great time with this game. I had fun. I just think it fell down really flat on the story, especially because at the end they give you this cliffhanger where it's like, XCOM don't know they're already at war, and it's like, bro, I've done as much fighting in this one city than I ever did in an XCOM or XCOM 2 campaign. If they haven't figured it out yet, like, these are the dumbest people alive, straight up. It's ridiculous, and it just really feels like a missed opportunity. Like, they could have said something interesting through the mechanics of the game, and they just didn't. It fell down flat in that regard. But in terms of like the resource management and the actual gameplay and the day system, it's just XCOM.
Wait, there's a night.
It's XCOM.
There's a night and day system.
Well, it's kind of like, it's almost like Harvest Moon.
What?
Like not even like the original XCOM games, but it's kind of like one of those farming sims where like every day certain events happen.
Okay.
And every day you get closer to a thing. It's kind of how it gave me the same vibes. It's not like, people are gonna play this game after this episode comes out and they're gonna be like, this guy is on crack. Like, I don't know what game he played, but that wasn't this one. I'm having a hard time describing it. Or like, but that was the vibe it gave me of like, there's this day cycle and every day you can do one thing. Or like Persona. I'm playing through Persona right now, so of course I'm gonna have a lot of things. But like, you can only do like a certain thing and that will move time forward. And it's very similar to that, where it's like, okay, you can sign this officer up for training and they'll be in training for 3 days. And you have to move time forward by doing a mission. And after you've done 3 days worth of missions, that officer will be out of training. It was very similar to that.
Okay.
Actually, it was exactly that. So it was similar to Persona, where it's like you have a task that you can do, but that task will take time and you can't get that time back. You can't do an unlimited amount of things in every day.
Right.
You can only do a certain number of things.
Okay, that's really interesting. Usually I really love those kinds of mechanics. Like,
I think they nailed it.
Yeah?
That is not a bad thing about this game. I think they nailed it. It works really well in this game. I have absolutely no problem with that. My problem comes from the fact that the game seems to have something it wants to say, and it doesn't do it effectively because there's nothing within the gameplay that seems to affect anything. in terms of the story. Like, you just move the story along by doing missions. But I think it would be more interesting. It would make a more interesting story. It would make a more interesting game if, for example, we take that idea of installing either social programs or field teams. And it's like, if you install more social programs, then you get fewer enemies later on because they were able to recruit less, because you've put, education and welfare up on a pedestal, and citizens don't have to join gangs or join these terrorist groups to make ends meet. They had a chance to do something interesting with the narrative and the gameplay in this game, and they just didn't, which was really disappointing.
Right, because what it sounds like is that it's almost perfect setup for almost like a literal class warfare type strategy game.
Yeah, kind of.
Sounds really cool now that I said that out loud. But all it does is it's basically just an XCOM game.
Yeah, it's an XCOM game with a new coat of paint.
Right. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because I feel like they had a really solid opportunity to do something interesting with it, and I just am disappointed that nothing interesting came of it. And I think that their attempt to do something interesting was the breach mechanic, but
so what's the breach mechanic?
I don't care. It's just like you just bust through at the beginning of the level. You basically bust through a thing and you get a couple of free shots, and that's it. It's really not. It's not a game changer in any meaningful way, and it's unfortunate. I know why they had to do it, because as we'll get into the difficulty part later, the breach mechanic is kind of necessary with the way that the levels are set up in this game, and they did a good job of the levels are smaller, but the context is you're fighting in a city, not fighting all over the world. So that kind of makes sense. They're tightening the scope a little. But because the levels are smaller, movement isn't as necessary, so they need to have your characters do something other than sit in the same place and shoot, which was a lot of what I did. And so the breach mechanic came in to be like, okay, let's spice this up. We'll do this 2 or 3 times a mission, and you'll have a chance to do something other than just shoot.
Right.
So I get why they did it. I just feel like it was enough to make the game fun still, but it wasn't enough to really kind of drive the point home through playing the game of what the game was trying to say politically.
Right, because if you played it on mute, you wouldn't pick up any of those themes.
Exactly. If you played it on mute, you wouldn't pick up anything from this game story-wise, literally nothing. And I don't like games that do that, where it's your actions are basically, you're a pawn in someone else's story.
Right.
That's what it feels like, is that you're just a pawn in your boss's story, essentially.
Now,
it's she makes all the decisions. She tells you where all the stuff is, and she tells you what to do. She tells you to install the field teams, and you just do it because it's the only thing that you can do in the game. You can't make any decisions for yourself when it comes to the welfare of the city.
Well, why would you want to do that?
I guess so. I guess that's what they thought.
Yeah, you just want to shoot aliens in the face, right?
And that was fun,
right.
Shooting aliens in the face was fun. I just felt like they had the opportunity to do something interesting, and I am disappointed that it was left on the table.
I think that's almost a perfect setup into the next, the second sentence of your topics, where you're like, oh, I'm just a pawn. There's a specific franchise where in all of their games, you are literally just a pawn being used the whole time, and it's very sad. And that would be the Dark Souls series and Elden Ring, and where you think you're in charge and you're not.
Yeah.
And so how's the difficulty of the game?
Well, when people say, difficulty in games is a controversial topic, the game that comes up first is always Dark Souls, right?
Exactly.
And I think that that's because a lot of people misunderstand what we're talking about when we say difficulty in games, and everyone just starts screaming.
Right.
You say, oh, that game's hard, and then another person will say, oh, it's not hard, and then all of a sudden screaming match.
Exactly. Yeah.
First of all, I'd like to say that different levels of skill can exist in a thing, and that's okay. You can be good at a thing. Totally fine. Nobody cares. You can be bad at a thing. Totally fine. Nobody cares. And also that not everything is for everyone.
Exactly. A game for everyone is a bad game.
Exactly. If you are bad at a thing, you try to play it and you're like, man, I'm just not having fun with this because it's just not very easy, and I like games that are easy and casual. And okay, well, maybe that game's just not for you. You know, people might rave about it, but you've already played it enough to make up your mind about it. It's not for you, and that's okay. It's like, if you want to enjoy the story, you can always watch a synopsis. You know, and enjoy a story told to you that way. It's totally fine. But I think that the idea of like the Dark Souls easy mode is always the thing people like to talk about when it comes to, you know, that would ruin the game's design. And I agree. I think a Dark Souls easy mode is not a good idea.
No.
Part of the, so this is what I'm talking about when it's like the gameplay is interacting with the story. Part of the story in there is that the world is completely unforgiving.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
So
it's a character in and of itself.
Right. The world is a character and it's trying to kill you all the time, and it's not pulling punches.
No.
You know? So the whole idea of like, well, I want to experience the story too, so they should make it easier. But it's like, but that means that you're experiencing a different story now. Like, you're not experiencing Dark Souls, because the whole point is that the world fucking hates you and wants to kill you, all the time.
And you're able to conquer it.
And that you're able to conquer it. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with my first point, which is that like a well-told story in a video game is told through both the layered on, you know, audio visual stuff, and also by the way you play the game.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So like perfect video games like BioShock, where it gives you that illusion of choice, and then at the end he's like, you're a fucker, like you didn't have any choice at all after all, like you're stupid,
idiot.
You know? Yeah.
Can't
idiot.
believe you fell for my brainwashing.
Yeah. Exactly. Like that whole, like that works because throughout the whole game it's kind of like, hey, you have this subtle choice of like saving the big sisters or what is it, the little sisters, saving them or killing them, right?
Yeah. Harvesting is,
and there is kind of like a good ending and a bad ending.
Yeah.
But they're not that different from each other, and that's kind of the point of the game.
Yeah. Is that
it doesn't really matter what you did because this was going to happen anyway. And that's kind of also the story that Dark Souls is trying to tell, is that your adventure is inevitable. Whether it's you that takes it or someone else, doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And this is kind of a minor thing, but like I feel like things like Elden Ring especially, they kind of do have a difficulty level. Like you can run through that game naked if you think it's easy, you know, and it'll be a lot harder. Or you think it's, you know, if it's really hard, then you just, you know, master some like long range spells and up your dexterity so you can dodge roll, and the game gets a lot easier. You know, like there are ways to hinder or help you, and you just have to find them. And you find that through gameplay, through exploration, through whatever. And I think that it's masterfully done. So that's what I'm also kind of like, yeah, it's going to be hard no matter what. But like, once you get a boss's pattern, like, because I mean, all the bosses have a pattern. It's just pattern recognition. But it's a really hard pattern. But
yeah,
you know,
like if you're not careful, it'll still fuck you up, even if you know the pattern.
Right.
You know?
But there's a system, you know, and all that makes the game easier is that dedication and trying, and that effort that you put in to, you know, conquer that obstacle.
Right. I don't even think necessarily that it has to do with like dedication and putting the work in or anything like that. But I think that, you know, culturally, a lot of people who play easy games, who just like to breeze through and get some kills and find some cool shit on the map or whatever, they're not used to a game being like, all right, do whatever. You know, the story's that way, but like you don't have to go that way if you don't want to. And with Dark Souls, it doesn't even have that second part where it tells you which direction the story's in.
Which is why I'm a little bit more critical of Dark Souls, personally. But I do understand why people like it, though.
Yeah, Dark Souls is not a perfect game by any means. We're not those people. I personally have only beaten Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3. Those are the only ones that I've beaten. I've played them all. I even played Elden Ring right up until you get to the snowy point, and then I just kind of lost interest.
Man, I love Elden Ring. That's the only
it's
one
a great game.
I've beaten.
I had a fantastic time with Elden Ring all the way up to that point, and then more of those fucking dwarves with the crazy hooks came at me, and I was just like, I think I'm done for now. Like, I'll come back to it later, maybe. I just hate that enemy. And
I
then
get it.
Dark Souls 2 was the first one I played, and I devoured that game.
Mhm.
Like that one really struck a chord with me for some reason. I still think it's a fantastic game. And then Dark Souls 3 was just basically a continuation of that, so I played the shit out of that.
Yeah.
Bloodborne, don't have a PlayStation. Oops.
Whoops.
Sekiro,
PC
couldn't get
port
into it. Yeah. Sekiro, couldn't get into it. I don't know. I'm going to have to play it eventually on this show, so we'll see, but I just couldn't get into it.
But what should be said is that we're not fanboys, you know? Like,
no, we're not fanboys of Dark Souls, but there's a point to the difficulty in those games,
Yeah.
you know? There's a narrative point to it, which is that the world hates you.
Exactly.
And it wants it to feel like the world hates you. Because if it doesn't feel like the world hates you, then all the cutscenes about like, oh, this old god and that one want to kill everything, they feel completely not genuine.
I mean, yeah, it's just cheesy and cliche then.
Yeah, it's just cheesy and cliche. But if the actual game is hard and everything does hate you and wants to kill you and is successful a lot of the time, then it feels like the game is making a point.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
And when it comes to, I'm gonna circle back here real quick because I talked about Dark Souls there for a while. But when it comes to Chimera Squad, I feel like, okay, well, first I have to say one more thing about Dark Souls, which is that it never feels like bullshit, right?
Mhm.
Because even if you run into this boss that will like mash you into the ground a bunch, like you can go somewhere else for a bit, level up, get stronger, find some better gear, maybe find a thing that's like a note that'll say, hey, to beat this boss, you can do this, you know?
Yeah, or an item.
Because some things
Yeah.
like that. Or an item, or you can summon people, you can summon the NPCs.
Exactly.
You know, all this shit is there to help you beat the boss. Like, it is not an impossible task to do, even if you don't succeed your first go around. But the point with Chimera Squad that I wanted to make is that the game is piss easy all the way up to, well, let me talk about why I bricked my first save, and then I think you'll understand what happened here.
All right.
So in Chimera Squad, there's 3 separate investigations that you have to do to beat the game. And each of these investigations is into a different terrorist cell. And they just present you with all 3 at the start and say, pick one.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay, cool. So I picked what I thought would be the coolest one. I was like, these guys look cool. I'm just going to go beat them first. Anyway, I am having a rough time with this investigation, right? Like, I am losing people left and right. And I can't seem to get out of a mission without someone being critically injured every time.
Mm-hmm.
But like, to the game's credit, I was having fun doing that because I was like, wow, this is tense. Like, I'm enjoying this. This is good. This is well balanced. I'm having fun here. And then I get to the final mission for that investigation. And the strongest enemies in the game show up. I'm 1/3 of the way through the game at this point, just to say. The strongest enemies in the game show up. I literally can't do anything else. This is the only mission on my board. It says critical mission. It has to be completed that day. There's no other missions to do. There's no other training I can do. I am out of time. I have to do this mission. And I go into the mission and I get creamed over and over and over again because every single enemy in that mission has twice as much health as I do and can kill my health bar in like 2 hits. And you can see on the side of the screen the little like turn queue. It's like, one of my dudes, 4 dudes, one of my dudes, 4 dudes, one of my dudes, 4 of theirs.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
It is insane. Like, I can't get a move in edgewise. I'm getting absolutely pummeled, right? And so I'm like, okay, I have to be doing something wrong here because this is fucked. Like, I literally can't even get past the first stage without wiping my squad, essentially.
Exactly.
And so I go online and I'm like, okay, I Google it. I'm like, all right, boss room for this investigation. What's going on here? Am I missing something? You know, blah, 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 whatever. Do some Google foo. Come to find out, this is like one of the most upvoted posts on the Chimera Squad subreddit, which is like, the title of the post is something is like, this boss room is overkill. And he's talking about all the same problems that I had. And in like every other comment was a guy saying like, yeah, I bricked my save because of that. Like, I literally can't beat the mission. I have nothing else to do. I can't go back, you know, all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Every other comment was talking about that. And then in the second part of each of those comments, they'd be like, what you have to do is you have to go from left to right on the investigations because they get progressively harder. So if you start with the third one, and the game just presents you with all 3 of these and you can just pick. It doesn't tell you that this is the first one, this is the second one, this is the third one.
Right.
It just says pick one.
Okay.
Pick one to start with, and then you can move on to the others. And so I was like, okay, I'll just pick the cool one. So I picked that one, bricked my save because of this shit. It doesn't tell you that. And then it also tells you, or at least it encourages you to pick missions that speed up the investigation time.
Yeah.
So in other words, give you less time to level up your dudes, because that's part of the narrative, right? That, like, this shit needs to get done fast. But I mean, as with all video games with time limit shit like this that don't actually think about it, like, it doesn't matter. Don't pick those missions because you'll have less time to level up your guys.
Exactly.
So I did what the game told me to do, and I just happened to pick the wrong investigation first, and because of that, I ended up entering what is essentially the final boss of the whole game, a third of the way through the game with underleveled agents.
Perfect.
Right? Perfect. Yeah. And so, okay, fine, whatever. Fuck that. I got mad. I walked away from the computer for a little bit, and then I restarted everything, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go left to right this time. I'm not gonna pick any of the missions that speed up investigation time, and we're just gonna get there. Okay, great. From here forward, the game is like shooting fish in a barrel. Like, just so easy. I'm breezing through this first investigation. I breeze through the second investigation. I breeze through the third investigation, the one that I first started off with, but got fucked over by, right?
Right.
All the way up to that final fucking mission again, where it still kicks my ass. I had to restart the second encounter in that mission. Let me tell you though, my whole squad was decked out in legendary equipment, fully trained, like full on, like plated armor, everything. I had everything on my side, and I could barely get past the second room without some serious jank of using some of the like team up stuff where you can submit like an extra turn after other people's turns. And even then I finally got to the final boss room and had to restart that encounter another like 3 times because it kicked my ass again. And it was just like, why? This doesn't make any sense. Like, all 3 of these, the whole theme is that these are like guerrilla, like splinter groups, like terrorist groups. And then this one is also easy all the way up until the very end, where it's like, it's not a difficulty curve, it's a fucking difficulty right angle that only happens on the very last mission of the entire campaign. It's so weird.
Can't prepare for.
That you can't prepare for. It just, I don't understand what the point was. Like, I feel very lucky to have had a certain character with a certain loadout. I had a character called Blue Blood with a gun called the Artful Fathom. It was a legendary pistol that let me take a free shot.
Oh, easy.
And Blue Blood has a skill where he can take a free shot.
Oh, so he gets 2 free shots, essentially.
Yeah, so he has 2 free shots, and then I had armor-piercing rounds, and that was literally the only way that I could beat the final encounter, was I spammed the fuck out of those free shots with the armor-piercing rounds, and basically just had my healer like sit back and heal him every turn, because she has a 0 cooldown heal, which I feel like was a thing that they put into the game because they realized that some of those, that specific final boss room, maybe some of the others if you play on harder difficulties, are just complete bullshit, essentially.
Yeah.
And it wasn't fun. It was just like, okay, I gotta restart this encounter, and if I don't kill 3 guys on the breach, I should just restart the encounter again, because if I don't get that lucky strike at first, I'm just gonna be absolutely mauled by these sword guys right out the gate, because I don't get the opportunity to put a turn in edgewise because there's 20 fucking enemies in that room and I only have 4 dudes.
Hell yeah.
So it was just like, I just felt like, okay, I'm just restarting this encounter a bunch, because if I don't get lucky on the breach, I am fucked.
Right. I mean, that's...
And it was not...
And that's not difficulty, that's just bullshit, you know?
That's just, yeah, it wasn't difficulty, it's just bullshit. I didn't feel like the game was being like, oh, you fucked up, like, I'm gonna take advantage of your slip up. I just felt like the game was like, all right, just put more dudes in the room, I guess.
Right.
That makes it hard. It's like, yeah, that does make it hard, but not fun hard. That's bullshit hard.
It's lazy level design.
It's lazy level design, and it's so annoying.
Which comes back to how gameplay doesn't affect, like, isn't supported by narrative, or narrative isn't supported by gameplay. It's just
exactly
bad level design.
Like, I thought this was a terrorist cell. I've killed hundreds of these fuckers by now. Like, how many? I live in a big ass fucking city, right? I live in Seattle. And if there was a terrorist group here, they'd probably have like 5 people.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe. There's like 2.5 million people in the greater Seattle area. Like, a terrorist group in a huge city does not have, especially in North America, where I'm assuming this takes place because everyone talks with a perfect American accent, including the aliens, which is weird, but whatever.
Pull a Halo.
Yeah. But it's like, what? Like, how do these people have so much manpower? I don't get it, because when you're like saving civilians in certain missions, like the civilians are aliens and humans too, and they're all like, it's funny to see like a snake dressed in a suit and tie, right?
Right.
But it's like, what? Like, I don't understand. Like, obviously some level of like mixing has already occurred where people are comfortable working with and around aliens, and most of these terrorist groups are alien based. Like, there are aliens in the terrorist groups, but like the mothership for the aliens has already taken off and like abandoned them here. So like, I just don't really understand the basis of the story, I guess, because it like nothing seems to line up. Like, they'll give me one piece of exposition and then I'll be like, oh, okay, so that means that aliens have, you know, integrated into our society, and like, you know, for the most part everyone's getting along, but there's a few, you know, splinter groups here and there that are very, you know, they're nationalist aliens essentially, right?
Right.
And you know, most of the groups, it basically comes down to that of like alien superiority or something like that.
Nothing really, like, no deep dives, just very...
Yeah, there's no huge deep dive into anything except for like a single throwaway line of dialogue at some point, which is like, they wanted to go home, like, what have we done? And then nobody ever talks about it ever again.
Oh yeah.
Like, it never even comes up.
No, you want to shoot more things. Why would we talk about that?
Yeah, exactly. I guess so. But yeah, it was just such a bullshit difficulty curve. It was just like, it just made the last mission like not fun. It just wasn't fun. It was not satisfying to beat the game, because after that last investigation mission, you have to do like 3 more missions that are like critical missions. Like, you have to do them right away, and that's how you finish the game, right?
Yeah.
There's actually the secret hidden final boss or whatever, and all 3 of those missions are, once again, piss easy, dude. Like, it's so weird. It's like, okay, here's this fucking bullshit hard mission. Great, all right, we did it. And it's like, no, do 3 more chores and then you can win. It's just so weird. Like, I don't understand what the thinking was behind this, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'm talking about with, you know, that's why I wrote difficulty in games, because this is such a great example of how not to do that.
Right. Like, yeah, you know, you want your games to, okay, so basically what it sounds like to me is that, yeah, it's free, you have free reign and you can pick where you want to go. And if you want it harder, maybe start on the second one, you know? And so like, that's kind of a built-in like difficulty choice, but at the same time, that means you still have to deal with the first one and you'll be like super overpowered. So
yep,
I'm not sure about the decision there. Like,
and it's essentially impossible, no matter what you do, it's essentially impossible to beat the third one as your first investigation.
Right.
Like, you just can't.
Exactly.
You can't.
And so
it's like, why even leave that as a choice?
Yeah. And it's like, and it's not like a Legend of Zelda thing where it's like, okay, Ganon is over there. You can go and try and kill Ganon. And if you're good enough, you can, but like, don't do that, you know?
Yeah.
But with this one, there is no indication on like, this one is harder or this one's easier or anything like that. And none of that. So when a game's like go willy-nilly, I expect to be able to go willy-nilly and have it designed accordingly. But
yeah,
that's not the case here.
No, it's not the case here. You should do them left to right, and don't pick any of the missions where it says subtract 3 days until final encounter. It's like, nope, don't do that. You need those 3 days to level up and train. Right. It's not worth doing. I don't know why the game even has those missions. It's stupid.
Like, do you want me to just spend less time playing your game?
Yeah, it's really weird. It was just a bunch of like really conflicting ideas that didn't really mesh well. But all that said, if you want more XCOM and you haven't played Chimera Squad, go play Chimera Squad.
It's a good game.
Seriously, it's a good game. It's all right. Just be aware that final mission is gonna fuck you, unless you have some kind of
No, not the
weird-
final mission. You have 3 chores.
Not
to
the
do
final.
after
No,
that.
not the final mission. Not the final mission. Sorry, the last mission of the 3rd investigation is going to fuck you, unless you have some kind of game breaking or like some super cheesy strategy. Like I had the 2 free shots with the armor piercing bullets. I went and rewatched the Zero Punctuation episode on this because I was very confused as to why he didn't talk about it, because he likes to talk about difficulty in games a lot. And he mentioned at some point in the video that what he was doing was he was having the big Muton guy run around and smash people and like level up his damage with the rage meter when he got damaged, and he was just having his healer stand in the corner and heal him every turn. So it feels like you need, if you play this game, you need to figure out a jank system that works for you, that can abuse the mechanics of the game to win. And that's not fun. That's like, okay, I'm not fighting aliens, I'm fighting a piece of software, you know? That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I would still probably recommend this game. If you like XCOM, play this game. You're gonna have a good time. My one problem, I actually have 0 problems with the like minute-to-minute gameplay except for one thing, which is that you cannot let agents die. If an agent dies, you get a game over and you have to restart.
What? In XCOM?
In XCOM, yes. It's not like in Fire Emblem where they might be named characters, but they can still die and you will never have them again. No. In this game, if an agent dies, that is a game over. You have to restart the mission. It is stupid. I am annoyed by that, but they only have like 20 characters, so I guess it makes sense, because if you're dropping like flies, eventually you'll just kill all the characters in the game. But I feel like the solution to that is to put more characters in the game,
Right.
not to make it so that, oh, well, actually you can't let your characters die, or like you get a game over if a character dies now. Because part of the whole appeal of XCOM is that a character might die, but you have to keep going.
Right.
You know, like you can't restart because, well, I mean, you can with save scumming or whatever, but like that's not how the game. See, this is a good example of narrative working with gameplay,
Right.
because the stakes are so high in XCOM. You know, there's an alien invasion or whatever, and if someone dies, like that's a fallen soldier, but you got to keep going. You know, like you can't stop because your soldier died. You know,
Right.
That's part of how the game works. That's why that works in that game, and I feel like this game would have benefited from that same attitude, and I am annoyed that that's not a thing. But most of the levels are easy enough that you will never encounter that. It only happened to me once, and only because I didn't really understand the stabilize mechanic quite yet. So don't sweat it.
I think it's kind of interesting because, like I was saying earlier about Gears Tactics, like that's how Gears Tactics operates. Is that when your character dies, like you have to restart the mission because like it's so integral to the narrative.
Oh,
because there's cutscenes.
I thought you meant the other way.
No.
Gotcha.
And I appreciated that actually because it was different than XCOM, you know. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I can, like, the bonds you form with XCOM characters will be probably better, and like you'll just have better like stories that you made yourself, which will inherently be better for you. But I'm also down for like, okay, I like the Gears universe, let's hear the story, you know.
But I mean, Gears Tactics was not called XCOM Gears of War.
Exactly. Like
Gears Tactics was a tactics game
based off
the
of
Gears of War
Gears
universe.
of War, you know, like
so they can do whatever they want with their style, you know. And I'm not against the whole like if an agent dies you get a game over. I'm not against that.
It just doesn't fit with XCOM.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It goes against
that's not
your expectations of the series.
Exactly. That's not what I expect from XCOM. I'll be totally honest with you, when the agent died, what I expected was, because it says at the beginning, like it literally tells you, like if an agent dies, you will fail the mission. What I thought that meant was that if an agent dies, we extract immediately, you fail the mission, anarchy rises, and like there's like a funeral cutscene.
Right. There's like consequences.
And then you keep going, you know?
Yeah.
That's what I thought that meant. I did not think that meant you get a game over. I thought that meant like you failed, like you fucked up, buddy. You know, like that kind of shit. I was ready for that too. I was like, oh no, like I'm gonna get told off by this game because I fucked up. But no, it was just like, game over. Just restart the mission. It's like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, that's
what?
That's really
that's not XCOM.
Exactly, because the story is not good enough for me to care about that.
Yeah,
switch,
the characters aren't good enough for me to care about that.
Yeah.
You know, they're all humans essentially, and some of them look like snakes. You know.
Yeah.
That's really what I have to say about that. Is that the characters might as well all be humans, and some of them are wearing a funny alien suit. There's nothing to them. There's literally nothing to them.
Right.
And it almost makes me laugh when the characters try to be deep, because there's this one thing that I think is really funny on the last investigation, the bullshit hard one. One of the characters that I used a lot because he has this great shield ability, will be like, oh my god, like I was cloned from that villain, like is the team okay with me here? And it's like, bro, according to the game, you guys have been killing aliens together for like 6 months.
Right.
I think we're past that.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. It's like, you're having this thought now? Like, I would have thought this would have come up when you joined XCOM.
Right.
You know, like I thought this would have been sorted by
Is
now.
that what we do here?
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. It was all around a silly experience from a narrative point of view. But if you just want some more XCOM, you want to put on a podcast or a YouTube video in the background, which I ended up doing for the second half, go for it. It's a good game.
Nice.
You'll enjoy it, and it's not $60 either. It's not selling itself as a AAA game.
Sick.
So
always an advantage.
It's tight.
All right. Well,
it's more XCOM. It's good. Go buy it. Just don't expect, the Mona Lisa of XCOM. Don't expect XCOM but Fire Emblem. Don't expect some cool narrative about the integration of aliens and humans. It's just more XCOM.
Hell yeah.
There you go.
Well, that's another one crossed off.
Another one crossed off.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Well,
cool.
Do you wanna know what next week's is?
All right, Davis, hit me with the next video.
Ooh.
The next video game.
Oh,
what do we got?
Man, we got Toto Temple Deluxe.
What?
It is a game about there's an exploding goat in the video. It's also a 4-player co-op game. It looks like an arena.
Split screen?
No, like against each other, like arena. Like think like Duck Hunt,
Or what? I don't even know.
You don't know Duck Hunt?
I own this game. Well, I know what Duck Hunt is. I don't even know what this game is.
Yeah, no, I don't know. This is what popped up. So,
dude, I think you're gonna have to text me the title because I don't even know.
Toto Temple Deluxe, man. What do you?
Toto, like Toto
Temple Deluxe.
Toto Temple Deluxe.
Yeah.
All right, man. Shit. Okay. Well, that video is probably gonna be pretty short. And
what do you mean?
Okay, well,
it's gonna be inspiring conversation.
I don't think there's gonna be a lot to say about
that one. Won't be a 50-minute video, you don't think?
Oh, I don't think so. Yeah. Oh shit, we are at 51 minutes right now, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, shit. After I chop it down, it'll probably be like 40.
Yeah,
but
we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
Anyway, Toto Temple Deluxe. I'll play it with you because it looks like. It would be pretty fucking sad if you played that alone.
I wonder if it has matchmaking. I guess we'll find out, right?
Yeah. It has 4-player local though.
It does.
Yeah. That's kind of
shit.
insane.
Maybe I'll get my wife to play with me.
Yeah, do it. Yeah. So any shout outs?
There was a thing that I was gonna shout out, and I remember seeing it and thinking about it and being like, I'm gonna shout that out on the next video.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember what it is.
Damn. Well, good thing I have one.
Don't remember. Then. Yeah, let's hit me with your shout out.
I was like, man, I haven't had any yet. So I'm gonna shout out my friend Neb. He streams on Twitch, and his handle is Nebula Space Invader.
Nebula Space Invader.
Yeah, right now he's on Capcom versus SNK 2 streak.
All right.
Plays some fighting games. Plays some Digimon. you know, he's very first off, he's really fun to watch, and then second, he plays just a large variety of like underappreciated games
Hell yeah.
as well. So shout out to him.
Good stuff.
Go watch his stuff, follow him, subscribe.
Go watch his stuff. Nebula Space Invader.
Perfect. But yeah,
Go watch him. Go check him out on Twitch. Also, go check out the thing that I forgot about. I don't know what it is,
Yeah.
so good luck finding it.
do that.
I don't remember. It's so funny though, because I remember seeing something or hearing about something and being like, oh, I'm gonna shout that out. I don't know what that was though anymore. So
Oh well.
too bad.
Next week. All right.
All right, man.
Well,
Sounds good.
see
Until
ya.
the next
See ya in
time.
Toto Temple Deluxe, man.
Toto Temple Deluxe. Let's do it.
All right.